Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Second meeting of the Fitchburg Parks Commission to order. It is 6:01. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the August meeting?
So moved. Second.
Second? Sam, a second? All right. And nobody registered to speak on this topic, so then if there are no comments from the commission, not seeing anybody particularly wishing to speak, so all those in favor of approving August minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, agenda item number 3, public appearances for non-agenda items. We do have a resident wishing to speak, Patrick Cheney. Please come on up, Patrick.
This is an objection that I have made before, and I will keep making it until I see it corrected. The agenda announcement at the top of your page says Park Commission meeting September 2, 6 p.m. Council, but the usual standard meeting time is the first Thursday. This is not Thursday, this is Tuesday. And last month was also shifted to Tuesday. At the very end of last August's meeting, it did mention that there was a conflict with the Thursday the 4th, so there was never anything specified about what the conflict was. There's nothing on the bulletin board for other meetings going on Thursday, so I don't know what that is. So the Park Commission keeps getting bumped out of the usual standard Thursday. My view of this is, okay, if you have to do it, but make it really clear on the agenda announcement that it is not the standard first Thursday. Because do you expect people to read every single word and look at every single letter on an agenda announcement, especially the top announcement of when and where and what time and all of that, when a lot of people just get used to the standard time for meetings? And Parks is first Thursday, 6 p.m. So when it's shifted to another day, that means there is one single digit, one character different, 2 instead of 4, September 2 instead of September 4, that people have to spot. And my view is that if you're going to change anything at all, date, time, place, make it especially pointed with red highlighting and stars and whatever you have to do to make it really clear that this is a abnormal change so that people are aware of this. Because how do you know that a bunch of people aren't going to show up on Thursday figuring, here's the Thursday Parks meeting and they want to speak on something, and when they come on Thursday, well, for one thing, they might be in whatever the conflict is, and they will have missed this meeting. So I'm waiting for that to be fixed, and you will hear from me every time it's not fixed.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Your point is well taken. I suspect that if somebody's going to read the agenda, the time and date might be of particular interest to them, and it is in bold on this agenda. So, I think that those looking to attend the meeting will likely seek that out. But your point is certainly well taken when it's shifted from the traditional time. So, thank you. Let's see. On to our discussion and action items for the night. Item 4A is Resolution R-14625, amending the 2025 general fund budget for park repairs. And we do have citizen registered to speak in opposition and prepared to answer questions if needed. Patrick Cheney, please go ahead.
This item just doesn't look right. It says in the report on here, the toilet at Quarry Ridge needs to be replaced at a cost of $3,150, including some newer shut flush valve. And I'm wondering how many people would spend over $3,000 on a new toilet. Whoever is shopping around for this needs to check Menards, Home Depot, First Supply, somewhere else. I don't know where this is coming from, and it'd be good to clear that up. That's an awful lot of money for this work. And then it says further down, there's some partitions that are being replaced for $4,464. That seems excessively expensive also, a total of $7,614. So that's one of the things, is these seems overpriced and somebody should shop around better. But the main objection to this is this says that on the resolution wording, let's see here. Down here in the report. While the parks budget does have funds allocated for building repairs and maintenance, etc., I know there is a fund that has money in it for general repairs, and this is not real clear on that, but it does seem to agree that there is money sitting right there in this fund that has been budgeted for normal repairs that come up unexpectedly. So this seems very out of place and inappropriate to have money in a repair fund, but then decide not to use it like it is budgeted for and allocated for, but instead go ask for some other money to cover something that come up. Why not use the money that's already in the fund, and maybe that would be it? If there's something else that comes up later, or if the fund runs out of money, that would be the time to ask for additional funds to cover unexpected extra expenses, but not have your cake and eat it too. Not keep the money that's in the fund for future things that might come up or might not, but ask for additional money now from somewhere else to pay for this thing that's come up. And it also says on the back, on the actual resolution, to redirect $8,000, that's more than apparently needed, but rounding up from health insurance premiums, that seems like manipulating the funds as a way of getting money from somewhere else to put it into here to use it up. And I question if that is, the right way to do this.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick. So before we dive into further discussion on 4A, do we have a motion?
I'll move approval for discussion.
A second?
I'll second it.
I'll second.
All right, Sam beats to it. Adam, would you like to give us a little bit background information?
Sure. Staff is requesting money. Sorry, I apologize. Staff is requesting funding for repairs at the Quarry Ridge restrooms. Currently, there's a restroom there that's shut down. The toilet's broken. These are older toilets that we are now struggling to get parts for. So typically, when these break, we buy the parts, and these toilets are getting to, we've got multiple toilets in our system that are getting to the age that we just can't get the parts for anymore. So we've got this toilet that's currently out of commission, but in the future, as these start to break, this will be kind of a future conversation that we'll continue to have, just because some of these are 15, 20 years old, and we can't find the parts. We typically try to salvage the parts off of old toilets, but we're just not able to get that. So the $3,150 is the quote that we received from the plumber that we used to kind of complete this work. And that's where that number came from. The Dolly restroom those are solid stone surfaces that repurposed it from Uri Madison. Those did crack last year. We did work on fixing that crack. It didn't hold. So it's not your typical metal stall or partitions that are in there. So we're looking at just taking those out and actually putting your typical metal ones in there that obviously won't crack. And the $4,464 that's the quote that we got from our supplier or vendor on that. The reason this is before you tonight is we did have various accounts last year that went over budget. So as an attempt to be proactive, we're trying to deal with these as they come up when there's larger repairs like this. As part of the 26 budget, we're looking at how much we're funding for our repairs. For better, for worse, what's going on in the parks is they're getting older and things are starting to break and things have gotten more expensive. I mean, we can take the approach of we can spend that account down to nothing, and then when something breaks that we really need to fix immediately, we could be in a pickle of just, is there funding there or not? But obviously any funding that we don't use in this is carried over into the general fund for next year. So it doesn't stay within the account, it gets carried like any normal account would. So we're just trying to be proactive here by coming here and moving the money. So as the repairs come up, and there will be additional repairs that probably need to be made elsewhere in the system, that we have funding that's readily available if it's more of an emergency or pressing item. The toilet one has been down pretty much the entire season, so that is a pressing matter. The dolly one, one of those is cracked already. It's about to break. The second part of it, we think it's going to crack and break some more, so we're just trying to be a little more proactive on that to deal with that before it would completely break, and then we'd be down a restroom in there as well, too. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So if I understand it right, point being of asking for this fund is so then if something more pressing and urgent comes up, you can just handle it rather than having to go through the process of asking for funds to fix it.
That's the goal. And we're, like I said, we went over budget last year in a variety of funds in the parks budget. And part of this is to make sure that that doesn't happen again. But part of that is making sure we have these issues that we can hopefully have that funding available to deal with it quickly versus having to come back through this process. And it takes about a month and a half to get our approvals in order to do this stuff.
Okay, understand. Thank you for that explanation.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of money that's allocated to it does seem excessive to me. I'd be interested to see what the plumber's breakdown is on that toilet repair, but that seems a little high. I guess the other point I might make is if we're buying toilets and we know they're going to last for N number of years, wouldn't it make sense to try to buy spares for those, regularly serviced items we purchased? When we buy the toilets, we buy spares for those toilets so that we could fix them later when they, in fact, will break, right? I mean, it's a pretty common thing done in IT for telecommunications and so on. They keep spares, so it might keep us from getting into problems down the road if when we buy a toilet, we buy the things we know are going to need to be repaired. So that's just my only point on that.
Can you address, Patrick's concern, don't we, that we have our parks repair budget instead of, this moving of funds? I'm not sure I heard the reason for that, why we're doing this instead of just using our parks budget.
Yeah, it was overspent last year. I mean, that's the reality of him. Quite honestly, a repair of, this $7,600. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it gets pretty close to what we have in that account. I mean, we have repairs that we're going to have to make to the splash pad when the season ended yesterday. There's some equipment in there that's broken as well, too, that we're going to have to fix, obviously, now versus in the spring. Where we do have that, but some of the items in there, quite honestly, of just what we're spending on even paper products is pretty sizable. Those costs have gone up. And for better or for worse, some of those numbers probably haven't been adjusted for years. And, that's part of the reason why stuff was overspent last year was they haven't been adjusted, and we're behind on some of that, especially when you start talking about the number of parks we have and just over the years what we've added. I mean, it starts to add up, and as it gets older, it breaks. So there is a maintenance or repair account in there. It's just for a cost like this, staff was not comfortable making that because we'd probably be back here at some point when something else broke because it would eat most of that budget. That's probably that one toilet's been sitting since, basically May, That's why it hasn't been operable.
The dolly, it's not that old. The bike, is there something, that's really, wasn't that long ago we built that, are we leaving water in there too long and it's freezing? You know, I'm kind of concerned, you know, we spent $250,000 on bathrooms for people on, you know, park their bikes there. And we had a lot of trouble with the building initially. You know, we had to have them come back and fix things, but am I missing something, Adam, or do you have any insights?
It's a solid surface, so it's not your typical door material. And I would bet that since it's outside and exposed to the elements and not in like City Hall here,
Yep.
I'm not a bathroom or door expert, but if I had to guess, it's not metal. It's not it's that solid surface material that has cracked on us, and it's not the typical material you'd have in take your pick, whatever restroom. And I suspect it's that material. I mean, it's pretty. I'm sure it looks nice, but for where it's being put, was probably a poor choice. Just long term is my guess.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other comments or questions on item 4A? All right. Hearing none, we can go to a vote. All those in favor of R 14625, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Please say nay. Do we have an abstention?
I have an abstention.
Okay, we have an abstention. All right, so we have 2 to none, so motion carries. Moving on to item 4B, R 14725. This is amending the 2025 TID closure excess increment fund budget pertaining to the Swan Creek tennis courts. We do have resident registered to speak. Patrick Cheney registered in opposition. Please go ahead.
This is to replace the Swan Creek tennis courts, which I am very familiar with. It's right near me. But I'm also very near the McGaw Park tennis courts and the McGaw Park pickleball courts. Now, I do know that the Chicory Meadow Park is getting a full rebuild. I don't know the number, but it's in the hundreds of thousands with basketball, tennis, plus 2 new dedicated pickleball courts are being added in Chicory Meadow. This question's here about whether the Swan Creek should be the 2 tennis courts again or more pickleball courts. This is getting to be overkill. How much pickleball do we need? Swan Creek is walking distance from the soon-to-be 12 dedicated pickleball courts in McGaw Park. People do still play tennis. Now, in McGaw Park, the 2 tennis courts, which were the first thing that was built in McGaw Park when it became a park, the surface is, I think, from my memory, something over 10 years old. There was a resurfacing done back then. As I remember, a contractor did McGaw Tennis and a couple other courts, resurfacing them for $7,000. Seemed like a good deal. Lasted a long time. But the McGaw tennis courts have been shut down. Tennis court nets were removed, which I objected to. So nobody can play tennis on there. And that would imply that the McGaw tennis court, 2 courts, are worse than the Swan Creek courts. The Swan Creek courts, last I looked over there, are still open with their nets all ready to go. The surface has some cracks in it, big deal. So seal the cracks up if that's a concern. But the McGaw tennis courts apparently are in worse shape, being shut down and nets removed. So why is this skipping past the McGaw tennis courts and going to Swan Creek tennis courts? The Swan Creek tennis courts are dual striped for tennis and pickleball. If somebody is over there and wants to play either one, it's available, dual striped. So again, I object to, changing one into 2 pickleball courts because there's some very nearby. And they're dual striped right now, so that should satisfy both sports. In McGaw, they're also dual striped if they were still in operation. And they should be, both of these should not be replaced. And this is $250,000 to replace the Swan Creek courts, plus $50,000 in planning? How much planning does it take to plan a tennis court? Both of these need resurfacing. That's it. Save a whole lot of money and just resurface both of them as is, dual stripe tennis, pickleball, and be done with it. Save a lot of money. Questions?
Thank you, Patrick. All right. Do we have a motion on R14725 to move on to discussion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Sarah and Dave the second. All right. Adam, would you like to give us some additional information on this one?
Thank you. This is a project that was planned for 2026, and based on our experience with Chicory and the bidding and ultimate construction of that project, we'd like to start the design work for Swan Creek this end of this year and wrap it up by hopefully beginning of next year, so we can bid that in a winter and have better bids. So what we're doing is we're requesting to shift money to allow for the design to start this year, and then also add $50,000 just based on what we saw with Chicory coming in much higher than we anticipated. So looking to get the design work moved up to start that pretty quickly here, and then also having some additional flexibility with the funding as well, just based on past experience. Regarding the layout of it, I think, I'd love to hear any feedback, comments you have on that. Right now it is the 2 tennis courts. Obviously pickleball continues to drive a lot in the community. One option is to do the 1 tennis court and the 2 pickleball courts, like we just recently did at Chicory, or we'll be starting at Chicory. But I'd really appreciate any feedback, because when we design this, we intend to design it kind of for that one option, whatever option is kind of selected, and not have multiple alternatives in there. It just makes it for a cleaner bid when we go out to bid. There is also a basketball court out there, I think probably as an alternate, just since we'll have the contractor on site. We'll bid kind of just like a quick resurfacing of that basketball court as an alternate, just to see what that comes in. And if we get a good value for that, we might consider doing that. But the bulk of this work is going to be with those kind of tennis courts, replacing those. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And I like the concept of the tennis, and 1 tennis court and then 2 pickleball courts like they did at Chicory, also to reduce funding, the fencing and so on. I think it makes sense. Pickleballs, I hear the proximity complaint, I guess, on the other side, but it doesn't seem like there's any shortage of people wanting to play the game, at least where I'm seeing anyway. So I think if there's demand and we can fund it, go ahead and do it.
I differ a little with Sam on that. I'd rather just put the 2 tennis courts in and then dual stripe them for pickleball. The difference between Chicory Meadows and this one, Chicory Meadows, people can't walk down to the pickleball court in McGaw. From Swan Creek, it's not far down there, and I'd prefer to see the 2 tennis courts if we want to dual line them so people could play pickleball. They could. I'd prefer that to just 1 tennis court and two more pickleball courts. That's my take on it, Chris.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sarah?
I would tend to agree with Dave. Just the proximity of McGaw makes it tempting to have the option available to play pickleball. However, I will say I definitely see people playing pickleball at Swan Creek, even with McGaw being accessible. So I guess I default to the staff, but I will say I do appreciate your pivot to asking for bids earlier in an attempt to save money. So I like that idea.
Dave?
One other thing, Patrick, to address, the city's made the decision, things change, and they don't intend to rebuild right now we don't intend to rebuild the McGaw tennis courts. I think that's proximity of where things are. I don't think that's what the plan is. I think plan was they're just going to kind of let that go away is what I understand our city's plan to be. I don't know if Adam, do you have any?
Yeah, so the intent is to remove that court most likely next year. Okay. The 2 courts are there.
The tennis court?
Yeah, McGaw.
Yeah. I don't really have anything to add other than what's already been said. I think that we've seen success with trying to get these bids earlier in the year and to save money on the installation. So hopefully this is a good approach, and hopefully it works again. I don't have a preference as to whether it's dual striped or the two courts, but I think that there's certainly good arguments, and this could give us an opportunity. If we decide, if we sort of liked the multiple court approach at the other park, and then this park we do the dual striping, it could give us an opportunity to kind of compare the two and see how they're used and see what the community tends to like. So yeah, I don't feel strongly, but we can certainly work through that during the design process. So, all right, is there anything else? All right, with no other comments, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of R 14725, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None opposed. The motion carries. All right, and on to item 4C, discussion and possible action regarding the name of the park currently, potentially, formerly known as the Hub at 2220 Traceway Drive. As a discussion item, I don't think we need any kind of motion. We can just kind of dive in. We began to touch on this a month ago or 2 months ago, 1 month ago. So, Adam, how would you like to start us off?
I'd have, it's how you want to take it, I guess. So obviously we've been talking about the name of the Hub. I think for sake of ease, we'll call it the Hub until something else is kind of decided or discussed as part of this. Staff is looking for feedback. That project will be wrapping up here in the next couple months, and obviously with an opening coming and future usage, we don't really have a name for it right now. We still call it as the Hub as staff. I think we had talked about some potential ideas at the last meeting. I think a few things were kind of thrown out potentially. This is the one comment I'll make, is that some names of people were talked about, and just to kind of clarify that, we typically don't name buildings after people. I think Sue might have had the idea that maybe a room or something like that. That's where, for example, this council chambers is named after somebody. So I would just give some caution to naming the building after a particular person, just because that hasn't been our past practice as a city, and that would be a new precedent we'd be setting, and I would just have a little caution with that. But from a staff standpoint, I think you've got a variety of options. If we do change the name from the Hub, there's that 60-day process we'll have to go through with the public notice. I mean, one option, if you do want to stick with the name Hub, you could make it the Hub on Traceway. You can make it, whatever you want to call it, the Hub on whatever it might be, whether it be, I think I had a couple ideas in the last packet, but I mean, you could stick with the Hub and try to clarify the Hub in Fitchburg. I mean, there's a variety of ways you could do that if you still want to stick with the name the Hub, but staff is just looking for direction, because quite honestly, we don't have a sign for the building. Not that we need one, but we'd like to kind of at least try to get a name established on this building when it opens, so it's clear kind of moving forward. So, but I'm looking for feedback and comments. That's all I'm looking for.
All right, thank you. Dave?
I think you heard from me last time. I a lot of respect kind of for the founder of our city, but Adam is correct. We shouldn't name a building after someone. And I've talked with Sue Easterday, and no disrespect to the mayor, the hub is she's been the driving force of the Hub. But you go to the DMV and you see there's a Hub on Park Street, not that far, and you think, well, the Fitchburg Hub, or where I'm not married to the Hub. I think the Traceway, Traceway Community Center and Park would is a good alternative. It talks about Traceway, that's kind of the neighborhood street, and a community center and park kind of covers what we're doing there. So that's my thought or my recommendation. I think she's not here, but I think Sue Easterday feels that would be a good alternative also.
Thank you.
So what is the name of that neighborhood there? If there is a name, I don't know if there is a.
Is it at Nine Springs?
Huh?
Isn't it Nine Springs?
Oh.
Is that the neighborhood?
Well, the Nine Springs Golf Course, but Yeah, I don't know, Madam Mayor, that's
Yeah,
good,
okay.
that's a good question, you know, that, if there's a known name of the neighborhood,
Yeah.
then that, you know, the Nine Springs
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood, or Nine Springs Community Center and Park would be more appropriate, but Traceway tells them where it is too, you know.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, you raise a very valid point, I don't have the answer.
But the hub was before the other hub, okay, so,
Can't put that genie back in the bottle.
yeah, but, I think there was, we met with the Gochang people last year, because we want to do an acknowledgement about the park is, you know, sitting on Gochang land. And they provide us with a name, but, it's very difficult to pronounce, isn't it, Dana?
Yeah, it was challenging. I think I had it in the
Yeah.
last memo. It was a great name. I think that's when Sue brought up of possibly a room could be called that, because it was a place of gathering, I think.
Yeah,
is what
place
it
of
meant.
gathering, yeah, but, so that one, we consulting with them, but I am open to, you know, for the idea, but we need to have a name because it's gonna be open in November. We are gonna do a ribbon cutting, and we need to have a sign and a name, with a name.
Can I offer this, and you're probably not gonna laugh at me, but do we want to offer someone naming rights to provide money to the city? You know, it's a community center, you know, and, you know, American Family Community Center, or, you know, I'm not opposed to that if it can help defray the, you know, a business wants to help defray the cost of it. I don't have an issue with that at all. And it's possibly a win-win.
No, I agree with you, Dave, this is a good idea. I think it was something that we considered, or I considered in the past, but who is going to be doing that, reach out to those companies? You know, I don't think that elected official, we should do that. This is what they told me, okay? We don't have a friends of the park that they should be doing that for us, you know what I mean? So, but if you people, the rest of the members, you can do that. If you know, it could be a good, you know, idea, you know, if we can, maybe a local company, a Fitchburg company.
That's my thought.
Yeah, maybe reach out to, you know, Promega, Sub-Zero, the other ones, you know what I mean? I don't know. But I think we need to find someone inside City Hall that is willing to do that. But I don't know if we can do that as a elected official, and if city staff can do that. You know what I mean? That one is my only concern about it.
I understand where you're coming from. I still feel it'd be a viable.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I do too. It seems like it could be a great opportunity. How I worry about the timeline with that. That could be very, very tricky to make that happen in time for the opening.
Yeah.
Not that, you know, maybe it wouldn't have to if there are some actual, you know, live nibbles on that bait, but you know, maybe it doesn't have to have a name at the time of opening. But I know we certainly like it too. I don't know.
No name.
Mayor, would you be I floated that balloon to some of the business people I know, just to see if anyone bites. You know, I'm not going to be out there actively engaged in it,
Yeah.
but I know some business leaders and say,
Okay.
well, the city's, you know, I feel I'm in the same position you
Yeah.
are, that, you know, but I know business leaders say, well, the city might consider this, maybe let Adam know if you have some interest. And
Yeah, I
could
am
have that-
open,
Could
you
have
know.
that discussion.
I think we can do it, isn't it, legally? I don't know.
I haven't looked into it, but I would assume there's probably a way of doing that. I mean, you look at Madison with the Goodmans, obviously,
Yeah.
that's the first one that comes to mind, I think, probably for all of us. There's
Which one?
obviously the Goodman Center, all the
Oh,
Goodman
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
pools and everything else that family has done. So, I mean, that's kind of there's clearly the ability to somehow do that. I'm not sure what the mechanism is and how that works, but there's
How do
obviously
you
a way.
approach the people? Because I know several business owners here in Fitchburg that I can approach too, but I don't know how do you do it? You know what I mean? Like,
No, so I'll let them know that they'd be interested.
I think if you're thinking that's a possibility, I think you just let them know, hey, the city might be interested in having the conversation on it. I think for anybody, it's the awkward conversation,
Yeah.
because, I mean, anytime you're asking for any money, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll take the lead on floating the balloon.
Okay.
Is that all right? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know where it'll go, but if it's all right. It's all right with the rest of you.
It's all right with me, absolutely. I have a
But
thought or two I could coordinate with you on as well.
Sounds, I still think we need to pick if it was the the American Family, Nine Springs Community Center and Park, or the Promega, we still need a name
yeah.
that the corporate would, if someone wanted to spot.
I mean, it's kind of in the center of Fitchburg in some ways, right? So you could call it Fitchburg Center Community Park, because it's kind of just east of the core center of the city, which is probably Lacey and Fish Hatchery Road.
It's a good
So
point.
given the fact that there isn't a neighborhood per se, you could simply just say it's in the center of Fitchburg, and it's this Fitchburg's Center Community Park.
The Nine Springs
Or
is the
Central,
most,
whatever you want to use.
Central.
Nine
Central, I
Springs
think,
is
works.
kind of the most
Yeah.
visible or known, known name there.
Yeah,
You know,
Nine
the
Springs.
course has been there, golf course has been there forever. I don't recall the neighborhood being referred to as
Yeah,
the Nine Springs neighborhood, but,
And also remember, this is more, the building looks more than a community center than a shelter. So I think when we need to approach that, this is a small community center, what we are building there. It's not a shelter, isn't it? Yeah, so.
Yeah, I think the Nine Springs name has a lot of recognition, but it also might get us into a little bit of the same tricky scenario, because there are other Nine Springs, Nine Springs EUA, the other spaces with that name. So I don't know if that would give us any of the same confusion.
good point, Chris, yeah.
It's off Fish Hatchery Road. You could use Fish Hatchery instead of Traceway, or, I mean, it's a pretty recognizable name, right?
You're right about that, Sam. It's certainly, it's the most recognizable street in the city.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So if people want to know where the park is, it's pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah, Fish Hatchery is very, very recognizable. Traceway, it's maybe less of a familiar name, but it also gives good direction as to, where it is, and it's not a name taken up by other things. So yeah, I don't have a strong feeling one way or another, but I think we're on a good path. What specifically, other than this conversation, would you like from us tonight? I don't know.
If Dave's planning on reaching out, I mean, we can wait. I think if anything, from a staff standpoint, we'll probably either pivot in how we're referring to it, maybe even as a center, but I'm just making that up right now as I'm talking, or we just go straight to the address.
I have a, well, the question is, how much? That one is what
I don't know, yeah. If they say 1,000 a year, I'm gonna say, well, stick it. I'm not, I don't know what, I have no idea what naming rights are worth, it's more of especially if it's a community business, kind of it's an investment in the city they're making,
And also, we can say that the money, that if we find a company that is willing to, to give us some cash, we can say that money is going to be restricted for the programming in that community center.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? We can put some restriction on how to use the money,
Mm-hmm.
So they feel more comfortable that if we do programming in the summer with kids, that money is going to cover the cost of providing those programmings or after school tutoring or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't need anything else. I mean, if those conversations are going to happen, we'll just refer to it as the address. As push comes to shove, I mean, that's what we'll do. I mean, ultimately, if you're talking names, if you're finding someone to donate money, they're going to probably have some stipulations of what they'd like to see in that name potentially too, whether it's a family or a company. So from a staff standpoint, we can just refer to it as, the address at the time being, and it's generic, but it actually is what it is. So we can do that.
I certainly expect before the next park meeting there's interest of, you know, I would expect the next couple weeks, and I get to work. I send the feelers out and tell the groups I know, you should hear back, and if you don't, and it's also, it's something, we name it, in the future, that could happen later too. You know, say we pick the fish hatchery, you know, Fitchburg Fish Hatchery Road Community Center and Park, and, you know, if corporate sponsor came at a later date, you know, certainly could entertain that at that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sarah, I thought I saw you had a question also, or a comment.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment. I was going to say, I know from our last meeting, I like the idea of pivoting away from hub to, just because there are so many and that it may be confusing. When I was just using the thesaurus, randomly trying to come up with suggestions, I did like Traceway, just to give some navigation and have it be clear that it would be a direction for people to go. And I like Traceway Commons. It wasn't a community center, just that we already have one of those as well. So I guess, just to voice my opinion for consideration, I think the idea of having a sponsor is smart, but just, I do like the idea of pivoting away from hub. I like the idea of maybe if something generic, like Sam said, the center or commons rather than the community center as well.
The Fitchburg Commons.
Thank you. All right, well, we have some direction on that then. Moving on, we have no communication items, so we'll go on to item number 6.
Okay, thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Madam
Mayor.
Mayor.
Let's see, which is staff reports and updates. We do have a citizen comment who doesn't necessarily need to speak, but wanted to make a note that there was the parks report from Joran wasn't included in this packet. So if just curious if that was missed for this month or where we might expect to see it.
Yeah, so I haven't included that report since Scott retired, so if there's a desire for that, let me know, but part of that is I'm just trying to make the best use of Jordan's time. He is a park maintenance supervisor, so I don't know if that's, from my standpoint, I'd prefer if he's out in the field and doing that stuff.
Sure, I don't have a strong feeling. Do other commissioners feel one way or another?
I don't know.
Certainly, I suppose certainly at least in the meantime when he's got sort of extra things on his plate, we can revisit it at a later date.
Always good.
Do we have any other questions or comments on the reports?
I do have an update item D, if you want me to talk about that one.
Please do.
Okay, so I have to cut you off. I apologize if I did. So item number D is the Parks, Forestry, and Manager position. This is a position that will be going to the Personnel Committee tomorrow night. So obviously with Scott's retirement, he was the Parks and Forestry and Recreation Director. We'll be making a change to that position title, which will become the Parks and Forestry Manager position. This was a recommendation that came out of a study that we did 2 years ago by Baker Tilly. And as we've looked at our options internally, how we are best structured currently and going forward with limited funding capacity, we're looking at making this shift. And this position would then shift under the Public Works Director. He would be that person would be overseeing the Parks and Forestry Manager position. Right now, so for example, Joran, since we were talking about Joran is technically a Public Works employee, and there's always been a slight, I don't want to say, it hasn't been a disconnect, but it's been an odd structure from a hierarchy standpoint where you have parks maintenance staff as public works employees, then you have a parks and forestry director. It's worked out fine because we have good people working here. There haven't been any issues, but just long term, we're trying to get that structure better aligned with kind of who's overseeing the work. So this would shift that Parks and Forestry Manager position under the Public Works Director. The Parks and Forestry Manager then would oversee Jordan's position, and then also our Anna Healy, our City Forester as well too. As part of this, we would then move the Recreation Department. We'd shift that one into a new division. That would be the Community Services Department. And that would include the Senior Center and also the Rec Department as well. Recreation function obviously kind of touches both on seniors and kids, so there's a lot of overlap from a programming standpoint. They share the same building over in the Community Center as well too. So just trying to get some better structure long term from a programming standpoint and a staffing standpoint in the city. So these will be going to personnel tomorrow night in this room. And assuming those are approved, we'll be posting that Parks and Forestry Manager position hopefully pretty quickly, with the intention of trying to make a hire for that position by the end of this year, beginning of next year. So that's what's kind of happening with Scott's former position. It's going to kind of get repurposed and retitled. That person would still report to the Parks Commission, except those recreation oversight would be shifted off to that new Senior Services Director, which would be Jill McCone, our current Senior Services Director. So she would move into that new position. Any questions from me?
No, I think it's a great move. I mean, I think it's long overdue. There was a lot of confusion about how much accountability there was with trying to get Jordan's time or whatever to do X, Y, and Z, and there was some conflict sometimes on where the appropriate use of his time should be placed. So I think it's now making it clear that there'll be direct control from the park director. And Scott, although he did a great job, was more, I think, more recreation focused. So I think it's good now that we'll have someone who will be focused on parks, because that's a huge job in and of itself, right? So I think this is a great move.
Thank you. Yeah, no questions or comments for me. I think it makes some good sense. Anyone else? No? Seeing none. Agenda item 7, park inventory update. We saw that in here.
Haven't forgotten. It's not in there. I haven't forgotten. It's on the list, and I apologize. It's going to probably take a little longer than all of us are. But I'm going to keep putting it on there so it doesn't get forgotten. Because quite honestly, if I don't put it on, I will forget it. So it will stay on there until we get to it.
All right. Thank you. And last item is our next meeting. I'm just looking at my calendar. It is October 2nd, which is back to our normal day of the first Thursday of the month. So no strange scheduling next month. With that, I could take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move adjournment.
And second, please.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 We are adjourned at 6:46. Thank you very much.
Thank you.